Hello and welcome to the Catch a Lift Coaches Corner. I am Cal head coach Melissa, and this week I am honored to welcome U.S. Army veteran Joe Diacheysn to today's show. Joe is a U.S. Army veteran, VA social worker, and CAL veteran athlete. Welcome to this week's episode of Coaches Corner. Joe, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we're excited to talk to you, Joe. Before we get started, too, if anybody wants to hear a little more from Joe, if you go back to our Veterans Day episode, he was also on that in a panel discussion. Let's get into it, Joe. Talk to me about what led you to enlist in the military.
Well, it's actually funny because one male of every generation in my family has served in the Army. And I remember growing up and seeing the pictures of my dad and my grandfather, and I was just like, that's not for me. I'm not going to do it. But then, time, like reality hit after I graduated high school. I was working in the warehouse for a year. No one in my family before me has ever gone to college. So I really didn't have any guidance on what to do with my life. And I had an uncle that married into the family that was a reservist for the Marine Corps. And he kind of talked to me about the benefits and everything like that. So after thinking about it for a while and talking to my dad and all that, I came really confident with talking to a recruiter. Recruiter was talking about National Guard or reserves. I can't remember, but I told the recruiter, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it full time. So I remember it was 1 year after graduating high school. I was all gung ho, and I joined in July of 2007.
That's awesome. Joe, what MOS did you come into the Army with?
31 Bravo, military police.
That's awesome. Joe, talk to us a little bit about your deployment. Where and when did you deploy?
Yeah, so in 2008 to 2009, I went to Afghanistan in the Logar province, moved around a lot in my deployment to different FOBs and COPs. But I was over there, I think it was RC East.
Joe, would you talk to us a little bit about what it was like to be an MP in Afghanistan?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was part of a brigade combat team out of Fort Drum, New York. And the way the brigades worked is obviously you had your battalions and your companies, but MPs were few and far in between. We had about 45, 50 MPs in the brigade. So we were put in the Special Troops Battalion, and we were in with like all the medics and the comm people. Is just like a company of specialty MOSs. And when we first got to Afghanistan, our mission changed continuously. So it was constantly, we were QRF, we were training the Afghan army, the Afghan police. We have helped with support missions, doing airdrops, helping secure towns while SF did their thing. And we also was an integral part of the like election process in the summertime.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
so we're kind of
incredible.
all. Thank you, and we definitely make the joke of MP being multi-purpose. So that's
Yeah,
all they
no
use it
kidding. Like,
for.
oh my gosh, like listing out all of that. That's incredible. Um, so like looking back on that, Joe, all of these, different duties that you performed as a military police officer, what did you like the best, or what did you kind of hope to get to go out and do?
So it's funny. I kind of go back to like being in the recruiter's office. I remember they asked me, what's your motivation? You're going to
Yeah,
deploy.
right.
So like, what's your actual motivation out 1 to 10? Like I said, I was gung ho, so I was like, send me. And uh, just going over there and having these different roles it was crazy because you learn in military police school. Obviously, you learn basic soldier knowledge, but then you learn a lot about working the road and local laws, stuff like that.
Right.
So it was completely different. But the good thing that I had the opportunity to is I was assigned to Fort Drum in February 2008, and I had 8 months. So in December of 2008, that's when I ended up deploying. So I had a lot a lot of time to prepare for the deployment. And it really, helped us to kind of get out of the police mindset and more on a combat mindset. We, 10th Mountain Division is light infantry, so that's what they really trained us on. We like to make a joke that infantry on wheels, because most of the time we're taking vehicles.
Yeah.
But it was special, and I when I was over there, I held all three roles of I was a gunner for some time. I got promoted, then I went to be a driver, and I was a TC for a while.
Wow, that's incredible. Joe, you mentioned that you guys would take part in the election process in the summer. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what that entailed?
Yeah, so we were working with the local Afghan police, and they had their own sort of cops. So they had their like police stations that were basically Connex drills or HESCO barriers, and specifically in the summer of 2008, we took our vehicles and we spent a week on the hill at one of their little police stations. So it was frequently having incoming. Dealing with the locals, trying to encourage them, because it's always about hearts and minds, trying to encourage them into the democratic process, and really just protecting ourselves while also trying to protect the town we were near. But it's kind of hard to hide our huge vehicles because they kept seeing us on the hill.
For sure. Yeah. Joe, you had become injured in Afghanistan. Would you touch on that for us, that time and what happened?
Yeah. So, we saw plenty of stuff, and dealt with a lot of things, but my specific injury occurred actually when I was when I returned from R&R, and we were on a bigger fob shank, and we were going to our cop in Baraki Barak, and we're driving at night, lights off, nods on, and I was the second vehicle, and I was TC that night, and the IED exploded underneath the driver. Thankfully, we were riding in a armored security vehicle, so a ASV, and they have that V shape underneath it. So we threw our truck up. We landed okay in the hole, but we were able to drive out of it. And it was more, thankfully, just like a back injury, and a TBI. And I remember, getting out the truck, being very pissed, looking around. There's a mosque, 200 meters away to the right, and they're all in there praying, paying no mind to us. So it was very difficult to deal with emotionally.
Right.
Yeah, and on top of that, the medic started talking to me. My back started hurting more, and we turned around, went back to Fob Shank, where we had the whole, the workup of physical and mental and everything. It wasn't severe enough to pull me off mission or anything like that, so I was able to complete, my deployment without any issue. But it did leave lasting effects, to a point of I was eventually, medically discharged from the Army, and I remember getting out, and I was consistently on a cane, throwing out my back constantly. I had a couple cortisol epidural shots that were very short term. So it was a difficult situation, that, like I say, I'm very happy to have my life, to have my limbs, but dealing with the back pain and being non-deployable, and what happens when you're non-deployable to the military, you're useless. So kind of dealing with all that emotion on top of my personal injury was a lot.
Talk to us a little bit about that, Joe. So you've expressed that, unfortunately, right, in that military environment, you get that kind of non-deployable label, and it's like, all right, you're on your way out the door, most likely. So you've suffered the loss of, your military career is over. You're dealing with this chronic pain, effects with TBI. Talk to us about how you managed kind of getting through that in those initial stages of that transition out of the military and back into civilian life.
Okay. The transition was very hard. Towards the tail end of my career, I was actually preparing for my second deployment. We were going back to Afghanistan. We ended up taking a combatives course, and that's when my back really got twisted and thrown out, basically. So that's when they did the MRI, found everything wrong with it, which is, a herniated disc, two bulging discs, some arthritis, and it led me to be on a cane for 6 weeks. They decided that I couldn't go on the deployment because of the profile. So they had transferred me. I was in an MP battalion at this time. So they transferred me from one company to the military police detachment company. And when I got there, they're like, and I wasn't 100% about to be med board at this time.
Okay.
It was just, all right, you're medically injured, you go over here. And they sent me to be a desk sergeant. So I ended up being the sergeant in charge of the desk or the desk. So I had specialists and below running the blotter, and I had myself and I think 2 or 3 other NCOs that had to constantly 24 hours be on that police desk at Fort Carson, Colorado. I remember getting one of those cortisol shots. I felt great after it. So the master sergeant who was in the police station saw me without a cane and just like ripped into me, telling me things that were fake and that.
Oh man.
So it was
horrible.
tough, and
Yeah.
they put after a while, once they found out I was actually med boarding, they took they took the responsibility away. So another NCO was in charge, but I was still on the desk, and I was put on nights. My wife was working during the day, so we were sort of like ships passing by in the night, and
right.
we rarely got time together. Thankfully, I didn't have kids at that point, so I didn't have to worry about that. But then I got my discharge paperwork. I started to leave. Sure enough, during out processing, the first sergeant, master sergeant, captain, they're all like lovey-dovey on my wife and telling them that I was a great soldier and all this. And I ended up getting out in February of 2013. And it was for all veterans. It's hard. You go from a very strict, very regimented schedule or unit, and you constantly have people you talk to and and then you get out and there's nobody there. I like to say that Uncle Sam shakes your hand, thanks you for your service, and then turns his back on you. And when I initially got out, I'm sorry, do you want me to go into work?
Yeah, keep going, Joe. You're good.
When I initially got out, I was living at my mother-in-law's house with my wife, and it was getting cramped quick. We were there, thankfully, only 5 months. I ended up, I did a sales job for 2 weeks. Realized that's not for me. I don't want to trick people into buying stuff. I ended up finding a security job for this company that was contracted with NASA. And it was crazy because somehow or some way they owned, or not owned, but they had a building they were securing owned by Columbia University in New York, but it was manned by NASA federal police officers. So I did that. I had to take a month course in Chincoteague in Virginia, I believe. And then I ended up going to New York. I was there for about 5 or 7 months, something like that.
Okay.
And the schedule was very off. I had to do 12-hour shifts working in New York. At the time, I was still in, Central Jersey. So I would work a 12-hour shift. I'd ride home. It could take 2 or 3 hours, depending on if I catch the right train or the right bus.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, I would get 4 hours of sleep at night
Ah,
and then do it again continuously. So it was a lot. So I ended up
yeah.
taking, or I found a separate job that was just a manager of a mailroom for, again, another contractor for the federal government. Um, that worked out fine. I thought I was doing great. I was there for 5 months, and I guess my memory started slipping, and they had a lot of policies about writing memorandums, and like if there was an error in the mailroom, I had to write a whole letter of why it happened, and something happened where I didn't remember to do a memo, and on top of that, there was a government employee who said something false about some work that the mailroom did. So I argued it, and that eventually led to them letting me go. So it was tough in the beginning, switching back and forth between jobs, nothing consistent past a year. Um, and at the time, I served 5.5 years in the Army, so I had that consistent job, and then getting out
Right.
and not finding a right place kind of, uh, hurt me emotionally. It hurt me, my marriage and stuff. And I had a job, or we had our house that we bought at the time. So it's like, is the house safe? Are we going to be safe?
Right.
So it was a lot to take in.
Oh, I bet that was. I bet that was. Man, so Joe, you would go on and you would end up back in school. Um, and I know when we talked before, we talked about it a little bit, and you told me your wife had quite a bit to do with that. Um, Talk to me about your wife during that time and kind of the decision for you to go back to school.
Yeah. My wife is, my rock and my anchor. She was there with me through everything. Thankfully, she's an Army brat. Her father's a retired first sergeant. Her mother served. Her sister served, so she's very used to
Yeah.
Army lifestyle. She was with me. We were engaged during my deployment, and we got married 8 months after I got back. And she rode with me through the different bases and stuff. So we've been through a lot. And I remember that day I got fired. I was just like pissed, very angry, and I came to see her at her job because she was working in New York. And when I saw her, like that wall just broke, and I remember just like falling apart right in front of her. Um, she really like gathered me up, helped me through that entire process. I took that time right after my termination to really take care of my mental health. And I started going to the VA, and I was attending appointments and groups and everything I could while I
Right.
could. That's why I did. And my wife was with me the entire time. She withstood all the pain, all the outbursts, everything. Um, and it got to a point of one day where I'm looking for work, but it's all the same stuff. Security. I need
Right.
a certain course to carry a weapon in New Jersey. So it was a lot of different things that I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was kind of lost. And my wife, one day, we were sitting down in the living room, and she just asked, what do you want to do? What makes you happy? And I told her, giving back to vets. And I didn't even think of this as a job, and she brought it up to me. But like going for social work. And at the time, I had my associates, and I had a few courses in for business administration. I didn't know what I was doing exactly,
Right.
um, but she kind of pointed it out to me as like, all right, we'll take this time to think about if you want to do it. Um, I ended up, touring a bunch of different campuses in New Jersey, and I ended up choosing Rutgers University. And my wife, even through that process, was amazing. She supported me taking classes, taking night classes, going full time. At one point, I was doing 18 credits, which is the max. And then I remember even with my master's, I had to not work. And just with my, my service connection compensation, and with her job, they really like she held it down for me. She let me do what I had to do to make sure that
So
I
awesome.
got where I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so great. That's so great. Um, and we definitely want to acknowledge that all of the incredible, caregivers, family members that do so much for our service members and just absolutely phenomenal. So a huge thank you, to your wife and to all those out there that do that. Um, so, during your time at Rutgers, you would go on and you would end up doing an internship at the VA. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, yeah. So it was fun. So I got my bachelor's in social work initially at Rutgers, which the GI Bill covered, and then I found out that Rutgers offered a advanced standing master's. So basically, a master's degree in 1 year.
Okay.
It took a lot of work, a lot of dedication, but
Yeah.
with the social work program, but even the undergrad, you have to intern somewhere. I was working to try to get in the VA initially with my undergrad, but the social worker I was talking to told me that I should wait until my master's because I can learn more, spend more time there.
Right.
Which it worked out because of the advanced standing course or program. It allowed me to spend 10 or 11 months interning instead of the 8 that you normally do. And I remember I did the entire interview process. It was waiting to hear back. They went from 14 to 4 interns that year. And it was a huge deal. I guess there was some sort of stipend. It was very little, but it was something where they had to dumb it down to 4 people.
Okay.
Um, and I got the call. I got told, I'd be an intern there, which was fantastic. I
Yeah.
didn't care about the money. I was like, just get me in there. I want to learn about the VA. I want to learn about how to give back and how I, like ignite my passion. That,
Right. Absolutely.
yeah. And I ended up going to the community living center, which is basically the nursing home for the VA. And I remember when I first went there, I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I want to do this. I don't know if I want like the elderly
Right.
population." But I ended up loving it. I mean, it was there in New Jersey. We have 150 long-term beds, about 50 subacute beds, and I was in charge of about 50, 55 guys, and it was so much fun seeing them every day. Mind you, they're stuck there, but me coming in, visiting their room, working with the doctor, the staff was great. They accepted me as if I was a full time employee, and I learned so much about just mental health, substance use, working with vets, all their different issues. I had the pleasure of working with a young man, although it's a long term care facility. And most of the patients are over 70. I had a young guy who's 28 at the time, and he was a Afghanistan veteran, and he was dealing with a lot, and it really like opened my eyes and like put a new burner on for my passion to work with vets.
Wow. That's literally just so incredible. Like I can't even imagine that. That's such a unique journey you had to get there, and then you know, ending up in that, in the facility like that, and seeing a young Afghanistan veteran. I mean, I can only imagine, what that brought up for you and what you learned through that experience. That's just incredible. Um, so, Joe, let's talk now. So, you work at the VA now. You work in the Transitional Care Management Program, and I know to me, I know it as the OEF OIF office. Probably a lot of our vets do too. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about working at the VA, and working transitional care management.
Yeah, it was luck of the draw almost. I was afforded with a position. I was working 11 months for a nonprofit organization at the time, and I was still working with vets in that, but it wasn't as frequent or as personal
Yeah.
as what I had with my internship. And my
Okay.
internship, um, the position I'm in now, the hiring manager was like, you know what, let me take a chance on an intern. Normally, I guess they didn't do that, but they were big about hiring interns. And he was actually an intern himself at some point for the VA. So it was helpful. My old supervisor spoke highly of me. So I was able to get my foot in the door. Um, with normal government positions, it takes a while to actually get the position and
Right.
start working. But to not only get in the VA, but to get into the program that's specific for the era veterans that
Yes.
we
Right.
all are.
Incredible.
And yeah, and the amount of knowledge I have learned in my role, because I'm not, when I was interning at the CLC, I was siloed into that position. At this position, I'm constantly working with different clinics, different departments. I remember first coming on board and wanting to work at a different location in New Jersey because it was closer to home. But where I am now is like the hub in New Jersey. It's where everything specialty is. And I
Okay.
have so many like different contacts, and people know when they come across a post 9/11 vet, they contact me over my own supervisor because they know I'm reliable. And it's just been an amazing opportunity to spread knowledge of the VA, to spread awareness, to advocate, to get guys off the street, to get them clean and sober. It's been so great. And like you said, it is called the Transitional Care Management Program, or TCM. All local VAs probably know it as OEF OIF because that was their name.
Yeah.
It started as a program specific for combat veterans after 9/11. But as the wars kind of died down,
Right.
they opened
Yeah.
it up to post 9/11. And it's funny because I kind of have a passion of telling people to use the term transition unit as opposed to OEF OIF, because I don't want our service members and veterans who never deployed and who have that empty right shoulder to kind of feel left out.
Right. Yeah. No, that's definitely a good point on that. Um, so I know for myself individually, I've been home now from Iraq like 15 plus years, or just this year I think will be 15 years. And like everybody, I had a really difficult time early on just navigating the VA, trying to I was lucky I had have a terrific husband caregiver that's really helped me navigate the system very well and advocate for me, but there was still just a lot of issues I had trying to get like the care that I needed. And I'd been home a few years, and I remember, again at the time, I'm going to use OEF OIF term, but like they sent me to, at the time it was the OEF OIF office, and I got for the first time a case manager, and my life at the VA kind of changed, or in that realm it changed. We were able to make these like really big changes that needed to be made in my care, and it just made such a like humongous impact in my life and kind of my recovery trajectory. So I definitely know like the resources coming out of that clinic, the care that they give and what they do for vets. How do you think, Joe, and I'm assuming it's a tremendous amount, but how do you think it has impacted you in your job, the fact that you yourself are, though, an Iraq, Afghanistan era veteran, you served there, you are the population.
Yeah, it's been eye opening because like I said, I learned so much as an employee as opposed to just being a patient. Um, I've been able to use my knowledge from the patient side of things to spread it to my colleagues, and just understanding the entire process and what we can do. If I knew that my local OEF OIF office can help me find a job, can help me find housing if I'm behind in rent, like the VA, if we can't do it for you directly, we have so many contacts, and we could guide you on the right path and connect you with the right people. And it's how I've actually, found um I found Catch a Lift that way. And
Is it? That's
yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
So my role, although I'm in my office now, is kind of expanded because we're also trying to track all post 9/11 vets throughout the hospital. So we have case managers in charge of whoever goes to the med units. I run the emergency room and the acute psych units. We have people in charge of substance use units. I mean, we're all over. We're trying to cover everyone who comes into the hospital who needs that
Right.
help. Yeah, and a big part of what we do is outreach. And if you're new to the VA, and whether it's you registered, you visit the ER, whatever it is, your name's going to pop up across their desk to call you. And they're going to try to do a case management screening, try to understand your background, what's going on, how are you, do you need resources, do you need case management? And I really like the role because we're bridging the gap between
Yes.
the VA and the military.
Yes,
There's no
100%. Yep.
there's no warm handoff at all. And although we're not perfect because we can't see people who got out or just moved to New Jersey, but once you establish yourself in that VA, or if you have a case manager from a different VA, contact us, say, hey, Joe's moving to New Jersey on this date. Do you mind connecting them? So there's no lapse in your treatment.
Right.
There's someone always. I always tell them, I'm here for you. I disclose my veteran status, and I tell them, covering your six wasn't just while you were serving. That's what we're here
Yep.
for.
Definitely. Definitely. Joe, what do you wish veterans knew, and specifically kind of our generation of veterans, what do you wish they knew about navigating the VA system?
I really wish that, one, we spoke up, just because we're taught to, to embrace the suck, to drink more, drive on.
Yes.
We're told to close everything in. And I still have trouble with that. I'm not going to say I'm perfect. I still close things in, but just going out, stepping out, saying you need the help. And it's any resources you need. It doesn't have to be VA specific. It doesn't have to be healthcare specific. If you need help with your claim, we have contacts. It's just really putting yourself out there. You don't have to go in great detail like in therapy, but
Right.
just let us know what's going on so we can help you. A big thing about like service connection, I always highlight this with vets, is you're only benefiting yourself by applying. You're not taking away from a veteran to your left or to your right.
Right.
If you don't apply, it's like when you're doing PT and you're like skipping it when the drill sergeant or the sergeant isn't looking, and you're not doing everything. You're cheating yourself.
Yep.
And this is twofold. It's the monthly compensation, and it's the healthcare. Unfortunately, not everybody is eligible for VA healthcare. I don't like how they have their eligibility standards, honestly, but as long as you get 10% or even 0% service connected, you could get care at the VA.
Right.
When you come for your service connected issues, that's free. And then there's a small caveat that it's put in their benefits handbook, but it's not widely advertised. But if you get to 50% service connection or higher, it costs free medical care. The only thing you can't get is dental, which is you have to be 100% or service connected to the jaw or mouth. But you come for any reason, big or small. You come for Tylenol. You could come for cancer treatment. You're going to get health care for free if you're over that 50% mark. And it's huge. I never understood it as a patient. I remember they tell you post 9/11 combat vets, you get 5 years of free medical care, even without service connection. And I never knew what that meant. I kind of questioned it when I was reaching the end of my 5 years. I was freaking out, like, am I going to start paying bills now?
Right.
So it took a lot of researching and just my job to find out that 50% or higher equals that free care. And then once you get 100%, you get dental care. You could put if you're 100% total permanent, you could be on, something called Champ VA, which is healthcare for your family and dependents. And there's all these things out here. And like I'm talking a lot about healthcare, but there's so much that the VA does.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so much the VA does that isn't advertised, that isn't widely known, and it's always word of mouth.
Yeah.
And I try to help my local area by contacting the Legion and the VFW and letting them know what's going on, especially with like the COVID stuff, really sharing that knowledge about the vaccines and the eligibility requirements. It's just, I wish I could grab every veteran and just
Right.
have a
Oh, I'm
one-on-one
sure you
with them.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely things, like I said, that aren't advertised too well. And there's so much info that I can't even cover it all without taking up too much time.
Yeah.
so
No,
it,
I
it
mean, there really isn't. Thank you for highlighting, seriously, thank you for highlighting those things that you did. You know, they're so very important. And like you said, unfortunately, it really is, most of it is word of mouth between us. And that's why it's so important, you know, for us to have strong community, you know, with our veteran brothers and sisters, so we can get this information out, you know, and help everybody the best we possibly can. Um, so Joe, you know, another big part of your life has been your fitness. You know, and I want to talk to you too about, you know, your involvement with Catch a Lift. So you said you found Catch a Lift, you know, from the VA, from transitional care.
yeah, so I was, I cover the acute psych unit, so all the post 9/11 veterans that come through there,
Yep.
and I do interviews with them and talk about discharge planning and getting them ready for after they're out. Um, and one of the social workers, I think it was the unit social worker, came up to me and he told me about Cal. He's like, "Hey, did you know there's this program that helps veterans get in the gym and take care of fitness?" I had no idea. So
Yeah.
he sent me like this 4 or 5 page flyer, um, and it told you how to apply. And I checked out the website, and I was like, this organization seems amazing
Yeah.
and almost too good to be true.
Yes.
um, so although I'm a social worker, and a lot of people assume that I got my stuff together, I still suffer mentally with PTSD and my TBI, and my job's very they accommodate me very well. And I I really thought that by connecting to here and kind of getting back in shape, and the biggest like pillar that we always that I always talk about for the 4 core pillars is our community. It just, I remember after applying, that's when the community started, and Catch Lift has always been there for me. Um, it all started with me posting on Landing Zone a Facebook post, just like sort of like a cry for help. I was having a tough time. I think my daughter she had RSV and she was only a few months old. So I was going through a lot. And then Nikki reached out to me, and she was there for me. She texted me, and she would call me and check in on me all the time. Uh, both Jasons were my coaches at some point. I remember applying, doing the interview again, told, I was on the 18-month wait list at the time. But the community was always there.
Yeah.
Although I was separated and I hadn't met anybody in person, and we weren't doing video calls that much back then, I felt like I knew everyone. And I think December 2019, I was given my grant for the gym, and I chose like this no fluff, no frills gym. It was great. I start repping my Cal gear there every day I could, and 3 months in, COVID hit. All the gyms in New Jersey, across the country, closed, and even in that time, I still had all of you to reach out to. I had, Rachel Forbes has been great with, ensuring that my grant stayed active and that I can try to get back in if I want to get back in. I have 2 kids and my wife, and I work in the hospital where I'm dealing with COVID on daily basis. So I didn't really want to risk it any further.
Right.
And they were able to transition it to a home equipment grant. And in this past year, I really, really, you think 2020, they talk about the COVID 30 or whatever, but it's opposite for me. I'm not huge on losing weight. To be honest, I just started doing a paleo diet 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And since I started, I lost 10 pounds already. And it's not, it's not fat per se. It is fat, but it's not like I'm a heavier set person.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the diet really did it. There's great recipes on the landing zone. And with the equipment that, David assisted me getting, and me just going on Facebook Marketplace and really bargaining with people to get more equipment. I have a nice little setup in my garage now, and me and my wife, we really dedicate, like, it's no more for the car. It's straight gym in the garage.
That's so awesome. I love it. Yes.
So Cal has completely, changed my life around.
No, and I mean, it's just incredible, Joe. All of us, and it's echoed across thousands, literally thousands of Cal veterans nationwide, the impact like that they've had. And, I'm so happy to hear the impact that specifically the community pillar has had on you. It's what's so wonderful about Catch Lift. We have those 4 pillars, with the nutrition, the fitness, community, emotional wellness, and we're hitting all those spots, and it's like everybody really has one in particular that really, kind of fuels them and drives them. And man, community is such a big part of that, though. And it's so important, especially for our generation of veterans, and just the state of the world today. Like you said, I mean, Cal and, being a part of this community for me, definitely is one of the huge reasons I made it through 2020 the way I did, yeah. So Joe, I have one more question I want to ask you. What does it mean to you to be a Catch a Lift Fund veteran athlete?
To be a catch a lift athlete, it means so much. The title in itself is amazing. I remember when I first applied, I was like, oh, I'm not ready for volunteering. I'm still kind of isolating myself, and I'm not ready to get out there. Jason Smith was amazing with trying to get me out to the last get together we had, and I couldn't make it. And I was like, oh, next year. Obviously that didn't work.
Yeah.
But
one of these times, yeah.
yeah. It's just been amazing, and getting to know everyone and kind of feeling like I'm back in a unit, although we're all separated. It really getting to know everybody, getting on the rally points after these podcasts. And Lynn, I don't know how Lynn does it, how she knows and remembers everyone. She feels like she's absolutely family. And I've texted her a few times and let her know that Catch Lift has really, really helped me both in my career and in my personal life. And I wouldn't be where I am today without Catch Lift.
Yeah. No, I know. Joe, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us today. Just tremendous, story and information that you were able to share with everybody. So thank you for that. And we also want to give a shout out. We're very excited that Joe has joined on our coaching and mentoring team, and he's going to start interviewing veterans as they come through the program. So we're so excited about that, and to continue to get you more involved. It's just, it's a huge blessing to have you on our team, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of Coach's Corner. We will return next Wednesday at 1 Eastern Time with another episode. Thank you again, Joe, for sharing your story and your light with us all today. We truly appreciate you. Thank you to ClearBridge for all your continued support of all things Catch a Lift. Huge thank you to Lynn Coughlin, Henry Pomper, and Kaylee Nasiri for your hard work to continuously make this podcast possible. And we thank the entire Cal team. And if there are any Cal vets who want to jump on and join Joe and I for Rally Point after the stream, just leave your email address in the chat box and we'll get you guys an email sent right over. We're excited to talk with you. And until next week, keep it real and stay Cal strong.